For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dhlamini. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me for Suttner's View, a weekly commentary on South Africa's political scene. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Some people interpret the DA compromise on the issue of Helen Zille as a defeat for Maimane. What is your view on the matter?
A lot of people have suggested that Maimane is a puppet and that Zille is not comfortable with black leaders, and that's why she fell out with Mbali Ntuli and with Lindiwe Mazibuko. And I think it's been very difficult for Maimane to operate in the shadow of Zille. And he has made a couple of speeches which have been, in a sense, to announce his credo as a new type of DA leader. But when you say you're a new type of leader, well, he hasn't used those words, but if you say you're a new type of leader, you have to be careful how you phrase it, because the previous leader remains in a key position, the only DA premier in South Africa. So when this happened, it was quite an important moment, because the people who say that the DA is racist, who say that the whites control the DA, had their views apparently reinforced by Zille making these statements about colonialism not being wholly a bad thing and stuff like this, and continuing to make statements which indicated that she wasn't really sorry for what she had done. And on the other hand, you had Maimane coming out very strongly, saying that it was completely unacceptable to him. And then when there was the disciplinary hearing, Maimane seemed to be very clear that Zille would be disciplined. And the majority of the leadership seemed to be very clear that she'd been disciplined. But obviously they've got calculations in their minds. It's not just a question of who's right, who's wrong. It's a question of whether the DA has a significant where is its main constituency, what is the constituency it's trying to win or possibly can win, what effect will it have if it removes Zille. If the main constituency of the DA remains whites, what does it mean to discipline Zille? If the DA is trying to win over black people as constituents, what does it mean to let Zille remain in leadership of DA and remain premier? And it seems that they made a compromise which will not satisfy a lot of people. For the people who support Zille, it'll be seen as humiliating, the fact that she had to apologize. But on the other hand, very many people will think, well, what is the point of removing her from DA positions but letting her remain Premier of the Western Cape when she has made statements which devalue the experiences that people have had under colonialism and apartheid, experiences which is not accurate to suggest that colonialism brought all the things that she said as it happens. But even if it were so, is that a price that one must pay for seizure of land, humiliation of people, and a number of other things that occurred there? So I think it was very difficult. I think Maimane has wanted to assert himself as a leader in his own right, and this was one way he was doing it. He was very, very firm, so firm that he actually deviated from the constitution of the DA when he suspended her prematurely. So he was indicating very clearly that he wanted firm action against her, and what they've done really is to compromise on this. And I don't think this in itself can be a decisive thing for the future of the DA, but it illustrates to the public that the DA is not a unified party. Clearly it's being pulled in more than one direction, and I don't think one can say this is an absolute victory for white racists or for black nationalists who want to defeat Zille. It's just a rather untidy way of dealing with the question.
So do you think that this affair will increase the perception that the DA is racist? And is it justified that people will persist in suggesting that the DA is racist?
You see, I think people like Malema from the EFF said that if the DA does not remove Zille as Premier, they will break out of the coalition. And he's been quiet since then, and he's referred interviewers to Ndlozi, the spokesperson, who has not said that they'll pull out. However, I don't want to, if the DA is racist or has not broken or has not demonstrated an adequate commitment to equality, it's not because of this in itself, in my opinion. I think that there are a number of things in the practice of the DA, in DA governance and in DA discourse, which I think do lend support to the idea that they are not wholly committed to transformation and reducing inequalities. I think I may have mentioned before on this show that when you go to Cape Town, things work very, very well in some parts of the city. It's not like here, where you have robots not working, potholes in places like the City Bowl and Sea Point. But if you look at the reports on this flood, a lot of people were still living in shacks. And these shacks, as you come from the airport, you can see some of them. But in not only there, in Gugulethu and a lot of the Cape Coloured areas, you have the same sorts of problems that you have here. What I think is symptomatic of a perception that people have of the DA being insensitive is the way they treat the toilets in Khayelitsha, that they are not enclosed, or they make arrangements that they will give a toilet, but that the resident is responsible for enclosing it. Now, that may sound like a fair deal unless you contextualize it and you ask, has the resident got the money to enclose it? And you then leave people to go out and use the toilet with no privacy whatsoever, which is to treat them in a dehumanized way. Secondly, a lot of people have been attacked or raped on the way back or to or back from the toilet. So this is one example of the way I think the DA has illustrated that it's not really sufficiently sensitive and committed to reducing inequality. But then there's the question of their discourse. If you listen to the DA in Parliament, very often DA members, including the Chief Whip, and I think Steenhuisen and Mania, have referred to people as stupid or saying that someone is talking nonsense. Now, in the context of South Africa, if you say to an African, you're stupid, it connotes imagery from apartheid, the phrase a dom kaffer, a dumb kaffer African. And so the word, or if you say, Mr. Chair, you are speaking nonsense. In other words, you are saying it is beyond the realm of rationality, and rationality is the preserve of whites, in the way it will be understood by people. So that is one thing. I also think that you get the impression from the way they behave when they talk like this, that these people have never worked with black people or with Africans, except maybe at a Congress. They go and elect Musi Maimane. They're not aware of things that upset people, things that upset them. Now, something that I really thought was very bad, the other day, Steenhuisen simply says to Balega Mbete, I think you need to see a therapist. Now, how can you say to anyone in public, use it as a jibe in Parliament, and I think you should see a therapist? It is a sort of callousness. It is if, for example, the person, because of the stress of the job, does in fact need to see a therapist, that's a very serious matter. And it's not a party political banter. And if you really want to, when you suggest someone sees a therapist, it should really be a way of helping the person. Consequently, you go and speak to the person on their own, listen to them, and then you say, have you considered you've got post-traumatic stress and this, that and the other, and then that perhaps you should consider counselling. Instead, it is used as a weapon, a callous weapon in parliamentary banter. Now, this type of behaviour, as when I was criticising this, calling people stupid on Twitter, Phumzile van Dam said it's got nothing to do with racism. But these things have all got to do with racism in the context of a young white man saying this to an old woman, or saying that someone is stupid who is black. These things have a history in South Africa, and I'm afraid the DA are newcomers to non-racialism. They must have humility. I'm not saying the ANC is above reproach. All I'm saying is we mustn't look to the DA as if they are flawless, that they make everything run smoothly. They do in the white areas. They don't do it in the black areas. But this type of banter, I think, is shameful and it's disgraceful. And for a young man to treat, a relatively young man, to treat a woman who's probably close to 70 that way, I find completely unacceptable.
Thank you, Professor. That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Crema Media's Polity about DA leadership.